Mino Line Media presents the Business First Podcast.
Hi, all, and welcome to a new episode of Business First with Sonia Alleyne. I am your host, and today I'm excited to introduce you to a business professional I had read about. She is actually the first Black woman to own a Chick-fil-A in the Pennsylvania. In fact, it's in the tri-state area of Pennsylvania, Delaware, and New Jersey. And what's exciting about that, what's special about that, is that Chick-fil-A accepts roughly 40,000 applications a year. And they only accept roughly 100 to 115 of those applications to be franchisees in the business. That's roughly 0.25%. And this young lady was one that they selected in 2022 as we were eking out of the pandemic and recovering from everything that was going on around business, around health, around community. And it was when Serena started her business. And so I'd like to introduce you to Serena. Serena, welcome to the studio. How are you today?
Thank you, Sonia. I'm doing fantastic. Thank you.
So what is it? And you know, one of the things I didn't say in the introduction is your journey to owning a Chick-fil-A franchise is also incredible. It wasn't something you thought about, but you were a serial entrepreneur in mindset.
Sure.
And so what is it that you think led you to be selected, right, to actually have this franchise?
Yeah, absolutely. I was certainly a serial entrepreneur. Started out very first experience owning a water ice truck in the city of Philadelphia. After that, I did some online boutique. I owned a boutique called Brazen, and we sold women's clothing. And then the last thing was just got into the real estate or Airbnb business, renting short-term rentals. And so what led me here was that I met some really amazing people that owned a Chick-fil-A, and they were young and they were ordinary, just like me. I come from the city of Philadelphia. I was raised by my mother and my stepfather. And when I met this young Black guy who owned a Chick-fil-A, he lived in Fremont, California. His name is John Hooper. John was so inspiring to me. And so, as you had said, Sonia, this was something that I did not just wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to own a Chick-fil-A one day. It was that I met this young guy who inspired me so much that I really wanted to tap into what that could look like for me one day. And so I did, and I allowed him to mentor me for many years.
What I think people will also find interesting about your story is that you had a tough time coming up. Right. And you had seen a lot of things. And although you had experienced, a lot of challenges in your childhood, there was something in your soul and your spirit that knew that I could do better. Like there was something out there for me. And so if you can tell us a little bit about your background and what were some of those tough moments for you as a young woman growing up. And, I read that your aunt was an inspiration to you. Your stepfather was an inspiration to you. What was it that allowed you to shift in an environment where so many other people couldn't figure out how to?
Yeah, absolutely. I was raised in public housing in North Philadelphia, one of the toughest areas in the city of Philadelphia at that time. Raised with two of my brothers. My mother always kept me involved in some type of sports or activity. So I did run track and I was in the drill team and always busy. But my brothers were similar in the way that they were busy with sports, but kind of strayed away from what the teachings of their mother and just not having their father in their lives as well. And so I saw a lot of my family just dynamics really struggle for many, many years. And when I think about how did I push through, it was people like my aunt, who went to college. She graduated from Temple University, but people like my stepfather, who did not go to college, but always had a stable job and worked for the city of Philadelphia. It was people like the two of them who helped my mother to care for us. And it was the people like them that, when I sit back and I think about what it means to be successful, or really do something different than what your demographics looks like, it was those two people. And so the demographics was, gangs, a lot of drug use, a lot of drug sales, a lot of alcoholism, a lot of those traumatic, homes that people are dealing with, a lot of trauma. And I'm sure these things, it still happens today, but I was raised in that environment. But seeing my aunt, my stepfather really, really wanting more had pushed me. And I remember my stepfather always saying to me, nothing comes to a sleeper but a dream. And so he would always, wake me up so early in the morning. And I never could really understand why. But today I understand, and I understand that statement. It's one of the things that I practice even in my life today. What are my goals, and how am I writing them down? How am I fulfilling those goals? But am I up? Am I ready to conquer the next day in front of me? Some of the things that, living in, I came from Raymond Rosen. We called back in the day the Raymond Rosen projects, or Raymond Rosen homes. And so it was certainly overcrowded, overcrowded, living in public housing. My mother was a recipient of public assistance. Me and my mother, we both learned how to drive at the same time. I was 14 and my mother's only 20 years older than me. So she at the time was just 34 years old. I tapped into those life skills that my stepfather would teach me along with my mother, and also watching my aunt do great things. And so that's how I was able to really transition and say, you know what, there's so much more than living on 23rd and Diamond, and there's so much more that I can achieve. My brothers, not so much. My family in general, there is a lot of addiction in our family, and people who suffer from addiction, and continue to help, our communities. And I've been working in this area of just helping with, alcoholism, addiction, for many years, as I served as a juvenile probation officer for the city of Philadelphia. And I also served in a capacity of a federal probation officer as well. And we worked with people who are struggling in those different capacities as well. And so I like to say that it's by the grace of God that I have been able to accomplish and become who I am today. And yeah.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. In fact, you thought that your journey in law enforcement, right? You thought that was going to be your path.
Oh yeah.
As a way to give back and as a way to help your community. You thought you were going to end up. Was it meeting John and seeing this young man as a business owner? Was that the turning point for you?
Me and John, it was the turning point for me. I never imagined that I would be able to accomplish today, being a woman operator in my hometown. It was because I saw someone like him, who also was, he's young, 31, black guy, owned a Chick-fil-A. And I actually thought of all the reasons why he probably was not the owner of that location. But when I met with him for about 3 hours, and we talked, and it literally changed my life. I've always been I've always been, whatever field I was in, whatever goal or field I was in, I really wanted to always be the best, excellence. I'm thinking about excellence every single time. And I think about what our founder, Truett Cathy, talks about, like, why not your best? And so when I met John Hooper, it just aligned, right? Being with a company that believes the same thing, like, why not your best? And so even when I was in law enforcement, I was a very young supervisor, because why not my best? I'm bringing my best every single time. And I do live, just more recently, I created a legacy statement. And I like to share it because I think that it's very important. If you don't have a legacy statement, it is just to create something that you wish to be remembered. And so, would love to share it with you. My legacy
Please.
statement is yes. I wish to be remembered as an honest woman who kept her commitments, who really, really stepped out on faith, but also changed her family cycle and made a positive influence on everybody that she came in contact with. And that is my legacy statement. And I'm serious about it. I live by it when people think of who I am. And so, yeah, that's where we are.
Yeah, I love that. And I would imagine that every time you share that with
Mm-hmm.
someone, you inspire them. Well, I'm inspired by it,
Thank you.
to really try and be their best and be committed, right, to the life that they say that they want to have.
Mm-hmm.
All that you just mentioned, that legacy statement, the way that you always want to show up and be your best, made you a prime candidate for Chick-fil-A. They have it's a highly selective process. They want people who are dedicated to the organization. I mean, everyone says that they want people who are dedicated to the organization, but they are very strict about their
Mm-hmm.
how they choose and select their owner operators. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what was it when you started to decide that, okay, this is what I want to
What
do?
to do?
What did that process look like?
Mm. Yeah, for me, it was just really determination that I resigned from my position. I was a federal probation officer. And this is something that people just wouldn't think of doing.
You don't
Working in the federal
resign from a
system.
federal, yes. So you don't give up a good federal job.
Right. So that's the first part, right?
Right,
And so that also makes me an more interesting or competitive person, right? And so I did so, and I did so with faith, and also with the leadership that I had and the support, the mentorship that I had. And so I worked in the restaurant. I found an operator that I partnered with that had been in the restaurant industry for over a decade. And I went and worked in the restaurant, and I learned everything from a team member perspective to really thinking like an owner. And so I did that for 3 full years. We had very hard days. I joined a grand opening team that opened a brand new restaurant, and I decided that that is the team I want to join. I want to join the team that is um, entering into a brand new phase and developing people and leaders. And so I wanted to be a part of that because I wanted to be prepared and be able to speak to when I get an opportunity to open up a restaurant, what that looks like, having that experience. And so that's why I went into the restaurant and I decided that, you know what, I'm going to be the best. I'm going to bring my best. Why not your best? And so my best was to say, if this is something that I really, really want to do, then I'm going to go into the restaurant. I'm going to learn the business. And that's what I did.
I want you to talk a little bit more about the importance of understanding every aspect of a business that you decide
Hmm.
to either open or run, whether it's the restaurant business or not.
Yeah.
But I think
Hmm.
people underestimate the importance of, it's, particularly in this age of everybody wanting to be a boss, right? And everybody wanting to be a leader. It's a very different experience to open something and just have no idea how it's run and hire people to run it than to understand how every aspect of the business runs and then build from that. So if you could talk about the importance of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly what I did. Really learning from the ground up. Learning the culture. What do you want your vision to be? What do you want the mission? And thinking about those things and really writing it down. What are your values? What do you like to see? What is your, next 90-day business plan? What is that business plan going to look like? It was so cool because after being in business for a year, I had did a business plan, and I went back and I went with my leadership team, and I said we completed out of, let's say, we completed probably 85% of the goals that we set out to achieve. And it was a great feeling to really reflect and say, wow, I wrote this business plan 2 years ago. And here it is, a year in the business. We can successfully check off these boxes of what we've been able to accomplish, you know? And so I think that it's preparing yourself for challenges with, it could be team members, it could be, it could be supplies, say if you're in real estate, right? It could be the demands of supplies, preparing yourself for the unknown, in the business, and being able to pivot as well. There's so many times in the business where I was just being able to pivot. You may think that something's going to happen the way that you plan, but it doesn't. But how do you pivot? And so I've encouraged many people. In particular, I think I have a friend that's looking into the healthcare industry and starting their own business in that field, and providing services or one-on-one care. And what I always do is challenge people to get involved. Find the people that are doing what you want to do well. Find those people, and see if they can partner with you. They can mentor you. See if you can join their team. And that's what I like to do. And so learning the business, you don't always have to start from scratch. I think that's one of the things that I continue to talk about. You really don't. There's people out here that have done what you're trying to accomplish. It's really tapping into those resources.
And franchising is a great way, to that point, right?
Yeah.
To be a business owner without starting from scratch.
What
would you suggest for folks who are considering going into franchises? Chick-fil-A is unique in terms of how food franchises operate. They don't require a large down payment, but they do require dedication. And so what would you suggest to someone who is interested in doing the franchise route?
So the first thing I would do is I would encourage, do their research. Make sure that this is a organization or a franchise brand that you want to partner with. And then I would suggest really maybe making contact with someone who's in that position. And so I receive a lot of inquiries. People walk into the restaurant all the time and they say, hey, like, how did you do this? Tell me, how did you do this? And I always invite people to come and meet with me at the restaurant to have a pretty in-depth conversation about how I was able to do what I've done. And I invite them into that space. A lot of times I'm on site. We're owner operators, so we're on site. We're in the business. But in the morning times, I'm usually there and I'm telling, anyone, hey, if you ever want to have, really serious conversation, we are here to have a conversation. And so I think that's what makes us unique too. We're pretty unique in that way, where you can go to a Chick-fil-A and see the owner of the restaurant there. And so if that's something that cannot happen, then I would probably say, do your research, submit your inquiries. The only process that I know is, the Chick-fil-A way, but submit your inquiries and find people who can connect you with the people that are doing what you'd like to do.
Earlier, you talked about, the importance of knowing how to pivot.
Yeah.
How do you handle crisis? Like, what is your formula for managing the hard days, the surprises, or the things that can disrupt your flow?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a gift because, and I have a lot of practice because I have 13 years of being in law enforcement and going into houses that may feel unsafe, being alert all the time. I have some skills that have been transferred into the restaurant, and knowing when to pivot or knowing when to exit. So I've a lot of training. And so it comes so natural today when I'm in the restaurant because I have a lot of training. The hard part is teaching and leading other people's and being able to teach them those same skills. And so that takes time. But for me, it comes pretty natural. I'm always trying to be proactive and not reactive. And so if I know that something has not lined up or aligned with how we need to do business, I'm always being proactive. So I'm thinking about, okay, what's next? What can we do to solve this issue? Another thing is I have a ton of de-escalation skills, especially in the quick service business, and you're dealing with a lot of guests that are coming into the restaurant. How do we get people really in and out and quickly and serve people and still have that same level of hospitality? It is managing your frustrations, your emotions, and sometimes that means taking care of yourself. One of the things that I do, Sonia, is I get plenty of rest. I get plenty of rest. I think that is so critical because when I get a lot of rest, I am my very best self. And so I can wake up, I can problem solve, and I can react without being, sleep deprived, working, overworking or burnout, right? I get to show up every day being my best self. And so self-care is when you think of physical and mental health, when you can, take a walk or a run or work out, I think it's critical. I think self-care, when we think about mental health, is critical. If you have a coach, if you have a therapist, I have both. I think that is critical to helping you learn how to pivot or change or make good decisions. I remember just reaching out to one of my coaches just earlier last week. Reached out to my coach about just a situation and having someone else help you to work through it. So not being afraid to ask for help is another way of being able to pivot, but also delegation. Right? Delegation is big too in the industry because you can't do it all on your by yourself. And so I think that those are some things that I've learned in order to be able to make wise, good decisions. And so, yeah.
Yeah. You said a whole lot right
That
there.
was a lot. Sorry.
No. What I'm saying is there's so much importance in first when you said I rest a lot. Like
I rest.
I can't remember the last time I've heard anyone use that or offer that as a strategy, and it's probably the most important thing you've said in the entire
Yes.
time that
Yep.
we are talking.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a routine that
Yes.
you go by? Are routines helpful for
Yes.
you? Does that make life easier?
Yes. And
Okay.
so I'm resting, I'm sleeping 7 to 8 hours. I'm very, very, very strategic about
Okay.
when I rest, and I don't watch TV. I mean, rest is different for all
Right.
types of people, but I rest and then I wake up and I'm refreshed. I
Okay.
do have a 13-year-old daughter who I care for. But that routine is, rest, workout, mental health. And then right after that, prayer for me. And then right after that, I am fit to work the next 10, 12 hours.
Right.
I am fit to really take on what's coming my way that day. And so that's my routine. Yeah. And then on Sundays, I rest, I go to church, I be with my family. That's what I do on my days where I'm not in the restaurant. And so that's my routine.
Yeah, I love that. I also
Mhm.
love that you have a coach and a
Yes.
therapist,
Yep. Both.
the best in the business. You
Hmm.
have both at the highest levels. Even the best
Yep.
coaches have
Hmm.
coaches and therapists.
Yes.
And so, talk about like what your selection process for choosing
Hmm.
someone to coach you, to work with you, and the
Yeah.
importance of having a
Yeah.
therapist. I know you said it was interesting. It's important to be able to run ideas past someone, but it's
Hmm.
elaborate
Yeah.
just a little bit more on how
Yeah,
those investments
absolutely.
are important.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was in the restaurant working for another operator, as I started to, when we talk about professional development, it was his recommendation that I seek out a professional coach. And so it actually was not my recommendation, but it has been my decision. Although I'm not working with him any longer and I am in my own restaurant, it has been my decision to continue to get that same type of investment or put in that same type of investment into who I am today. Like you said, coaches have coaches. And so it's been my decision to make sure that I still continue to invest in myself as becoming a leader of a high performing organization, a leader of a nationally known brand. How do I continue to educate myself? How do I continue to push myself to lead a team of 100 employees and a team of other thriving leaders? And how do I develop them? It is that reason why I still invest in that type of service. As far as a therapist, um, I was referred, again, another referral. I was referred to my current therapist because you get to talk to your friends, and your friends are important. You get to talk to your family, and your family are important as well. But understanding that there is something far more greater to working on yourself or any issues or any trauma that you have, and any self-doubt. And we all have pride or working through any of those things. That was a referral. And one day I just said, you know what? I need to find a therapist. And I talked to my friends and they helped me to land that person. And so one thing that I do, Sonia, too, is when there's something that I need, I tell everybody. I don't keep secrets. I tell everybody. I say, hey, here's what I'm looking for. Here's what I need. I was at an event earlier today and I said, to everyone that I talk to, I'm looking to have a job fair and I need a place to host it. And today, guess what? I got so many recommendations. And so I think it's so powerful too. A lot of times, at least where I'm from and from my community or, in my family, I was raised or I had experience where whatever you're doing, don't tell anybody. Just do it yourself. And if that sounds familiar to you, then you can understand I'm the complete opposite. What I found is the more I tell people, the more I actually have received. And so, and that's why we're here today too. That's why we're here today.
I love that. And I would imagine that it's about expectation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole reason that we're always told not to say anything is because we believe people are going to take our ideas, or they're going to
Mm-hmm.
sabotage what we do, or they're going to wish us, evil, or,
Mm-hmm.
all of the superstitions that go along with it as well. And it sounds like you have the expectation that if I need something, I'm going to ask for it and I'm going to get it. I'm going to
And yeah,
receive the help and the
absolutely.
support that I need.
Absolutely. I'll tell you another quick story. Before, I also considered owning child care centers at one point in time, 10 years ago. And a good friend of mine owns several child care centers. I was looking at a building right down the street from one of her locations. And you know what she told me? Very similar to who I am. She said, Serena, if you open up a child care center next door, it wouldn't matter. We're both going to win. We're winning already. And it was so powerful because that's exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
We're helping each other, and you're not taking from me. I'm not taking from you. And you'll be surprised how many doors open and all the gifts that you receive. You'll be surprised.
Before we wrap up, you got to tell us your legacy statement again.
Yes. Yes. So, thank you, Sonia. My legacy statement is I wish to be remembered as an honest woman who kept her commitments, who was led by her faith, also changed her family cycle, and made a positive influence on all the people that she came in contact with.
That is so powerful.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for coming here and blessing us with your
Yes.
wisdom and your insight and your journey. And I would love to have you come back because I would love us to do a whole nother podcast on leadership development and
Yeah.
and the skills that you impart on your team and how you get people from A to Z in terms of their goals and the goals of your organization.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much
so
for being
much.
here. We wish you all the best.
It is truly my pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you all for listening. We'll be back again next week with another great guest. Take care.
The Business First podcast is hosted and produced by Sonia Alleyne. Executive producer Ken Johnson. Find the Business First podcast on Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, Odyssey, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, TuneIn, or wherever you get your podcast. On social media on IG at business_first_podcast. Follow the Mean Old Line Media Podcast Network on IG at Mean Old Line Media. Get the Mean Old Line Media app in the App Store or Google Play. The Business First podcast is a Mean Old Line Media production.